Let's talk about stablecoins. A stablecoin is a synthetic token that is pegged to the value of another asset or currency. This is usually the US dollar, although there are stablecoins of other fiat currencies as well. The benefit of these is that you get the permissionless nature of crypto with the relative stability of the dollar. You can keep your savings in stablecoins rather than in a bank, so you maintain control of them. You can lend or borrow stablecoins and pay for things with them, similar to how you do it with dollars. You can transfer money internationally far faster than you could using the legacy infrastructure. This is especially valuable for people or organizations that don't have access to the global financial system. Stablecoins are most commonly used for fiat currencies, but they can also be pegged to gold or other assets. However, in those cases, we generally just call them synthetics. So for the purpose of this course, we'll say stablecoins are just pegged to fiat currencies. Now, the most common currency for this is the US dollar, so that's what we'll focus on in this lesson. And there are two types of stablecoins that we're going to mention: those that are backed by assets and those that are algorithmic. These can be centralized or decentralized, although centralized stablecoins are far more widely used. In fact, over 90% of stablecoin usage are in centralized stablecoins. So let's start with those and get the easy ones out of the way. The largest stablecoin by market cap is USDT, Tether. And Tether, where to start? Tether was the first stablecoin. It was created by Bitfinex's team and it was launched at the beginning of 2015, but it didn't have much use until the beginning of 2017. Back then, they allegedly backed each Tether printed by $1 in their accounts, but they've never been publicly audited, so there's a lot of skepticism in that regard. Now they claim they're backed by assets equal in dollar value to the amount of Tether in circulation. Again, questionable, opaque, lots of controversy there. Tether recently paid a $42.5 million fine to the CFTC because of false or misleading statements about their reserves, and although they admit no wrongdoing, there's widespread skepticism about their lack of wrongdoing. Now, on top of that, the Tether company maintains control of all UST in circulation, meaning you don't actually own any Tether in your wallet. You could send it to a burn address and then they could transfer it out, or they can transfer it out of your wallet if they chose to. Now, that said, Tether isn't the only stablecoin, or token for that matter, where the token contract is centrally controlled like that. As always, use crypto at your own risk, but I am especially careful about this one because I think at some point in the future, it's going to implode and a bunch of people will be left holding the bag. That's just my opinion on it, and I could be wrong, but I am always quick to get rid of Tether when I receive it or when I need it to pay for something. Next one to consider is USD Coin, which was created by Circle and Coinbase. USDC was also originally backed by dollars, but they recently and quietly changed their terms. They used to say every USDC was backed by $1. Now it says every USDC is backed by $1 or equivalent asset with fair value. Now, I'm definitely more comfortable holding USDC than USDT because Coinbase has a far better reputation than Tether, and as a publicly traded company in the US, they are required to be more transparent. Plus, it's easy to convert USDC for USD on Coinbase Pro within your portfolio without paying any fees. But at the same time, centralized stablecoin under control of one entity. The last two on this list I want to mention are BUSD and TUSD. BUSD, or Binance USD, was created in a partnership between Binance and Paxos. Paxos issues new BUSD tokens, and they are the custodian of the dollars backing it. TUSD, or TrueUSD, is very similar, but by Trust Token. Both of these are backed completely by dollars, at least for now. And you can check their third-party attestations on their websites linked below. BUSD has monthly attestations that show they have dollars in the regulated accounts at the end of every month. And TUSD has real-time audits by Armanino, which keeps an eye on the balance of the reserve accounts and then uses Chainlink oracles to update the TUSD proof of reserves, which can be seen on-chain. That's actually pretty cool. A third party that has access to see their accounts, and then they use a well-known oracle to bring that info on-chain. The benefit with this method is that it relies less on trust than other centralized stablecoins. That said, with all four of these stablecoins, they're all controlled by companies, so there is counterparty risk when using them, and it's important to keep that in mind. Now let's look at some decentralized stablecoins. It's easy to see how dollar or asset-backed stablecoins maintain their peg to the dollar. If you can always exchange one TUSD for one USD, there's no reason for someone to sell one TUSD below $1. And if you can always mint 1 TUSD by depositing $1, there's no reason for someone to buy it for more than $1. But when we want a decentralized stablecoin, things get a little different and a lot more difficult. Now, I've talked about DAI many times already, and I've covered how it maintains its peg in my MakerDAO video on my YouTube channel, so I won't dig into it here, and instead I'll link that video again. It has timestamps, so you can jump to the section you're interested in. But now we're going to look at Terra and how they maintain the peg for their stablecoin, UST. Terra definitely deserves its own video, and I'll probably make one on my channel sometime in the future, but let's keep it simple for this video and focus on their stablecoin, UST. UST is minted by depositing Terra's Luna coin. When you do this, some of the Luna is burned, and the rest goes into a community fund that is reinvested into the Terra ecosystem. This sounds like a good plan on the surface because then you're putting all that collateral to use, but it's important to understand that the collateral backing UST is Luna, and that collateral is reinvested, meaning UST is under collateralized. This creates extra risk without extra benefits for UST holders compared to other stablecoin holders, and the benefits of that system go to Luna holders since Luna is burned and put to use. So keep that in mind. Those market dynamics are important to understand. Now, the mechanism that keeps UST stable is simple. If the value goes above $1, they mint more of them and they sell them for $1. That inflates the supply and encourages holders to also sell them, bringing the price back down. Similarly, if the price goes below $1, Terra mints more of their Luna tokens and buys UST for $1, bringing the price back up. In this way, it's both algorithmic in design, but it's also asset-backed as UST tokens are backed by Luna. In either case, this is done on the open market and arbitrageurs can profit by bringing stability to the token. When we consider how UST maintains its peg with Luna and how it's under-collateralized since the collateral is spent on building the ecosystem, this means to me that the price of Luna is a potential single point of failure for the UST token, and if the price of Luna crashes, there's a possibility UST breaks its peg as well. Now that said, UST is gaining widespread use for payments, specifically in South Korea, so the added utility can drive demand for UST independent from Luna. As always, it's a complicated scenario and we'll have to see how it plays out. I do want to mention that although these decentralized algorithmic stablecoins have huge potential, they are still experimental. And although centralized stablecoins require trusting third parties, and some of them being very sketchy third parties, they have historically maintained their peg consistently better than their decentralized counterparts. So let's take a look at that. Wait, actually, before we look at each of their volatility, let me give it a disclaimer here that this is not going to be the whole picture that I'm showing. I used the Bittrex exchange for each of these charts because Bittrex doesn't have its own stablecoin, and most of the ones I've mentioned are listed on it. The only exception is BUSD, which can only be traded for USD directly on Binance US. Now, naturally, Binance USD will have almost no volatility on Binance because they can control that very precisely. The same thing goes for USDC on Coinbase. Actually, on Coinbase, USDC has zero volatility because you don't trade it for USD, you convert it directly, and it's always a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, with these charts, I scaled each of them equally, as you can see on the right-hand side, and we're looking at the past year. Looking at them this way, we can easily see the centralized stablecoins are far more stable, aside from a couple spikes or dips. Depending on what you're using stablecoins for, this level of volatility on the decentralized stablecoins is acceptable. It's like a dog on a leash. Both DAI and UST do hover right around the $1 range, plus or minus a few cents. But for many people, this is still too volatile and experimental, which is why their adoption is much lower. That said, we're still early, and if the game theory mechanics continue to play out and nothing causes their catastrophic failure, their adoption of decentralized stablecoins will continue, and as that happens, the volatility will decrease over time, which is the same thing that's going to happen to the crypto market as a whole as we gain mass adoption and maturity. So enjoy this volatility while it lasts. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to mention that there are tens of other stablecoins, many centralized and many decentralized with their own takes on it. I just covered the main ones that I thought were worth mentioning in this video. But that said, if you would like to dig into some more stablecoins, I've linked a CoinGecko page listing them by market cap, and you can check them out there. Your task for this lesson is to look into the stablecoins I've mentioned, and let's share some opinions in the forum. What do you think about Tether's reserves? Do you think USDT creates an existential risk in crypto like many people believe? Or what's your favorite stablecoin? Or we can look at DAI stats, and we see that 40% of the collateral backing DAI is USDC. Do you think that makes DAI less or more secure than if it were backed by something like ETH? Sound off in the forum, and let's talk about it.